As we move into the steps of effective communication, hopefully I can dismiss some of the concerns you may have. Hopefully I haven't scared you away from this subject so much you don't want to pursue it much further. But there's really an easy way for us to go about learning this and making it a part of our lifestyle. And so it's a self-improving technique that we use over years and years and years, and we just get better and better at it. So let's just go ahead and step through these. And it's a very simple 1, 2, 3 step process is what we're going to try and boil this down to. Step 1, which is the one that most people really don't think about, is understand the purpose of the verbal discussion. If you're the one that's initiating the conversation, you probably already have an idea of what the purpose is. And if you don't have an idea of what you're about to say, you ought to ask yourself, why am I saying something when I don't have a purpose for saying anything? And in that case, that's just a matter of asking yourself before you open your mouth, do I know what it is I'm trying to initiate this conversation about? However, if somebody else asks you to do something, have you fully listened to the question and what they've asked you? And do you understand what it is he or she wants you to do? So really this first step in this thing is understand the purpose of the verbal discussion. Because if you do that, you're setting out on the right path. And then as we move down, do the research and understand your duty. And once again, going back to this first one, before your initial conversation ended with the person that was asking you to do something, we've talked about this before, the verbal skills such as clarifiers. Have you clarified what it is that person wants you to do, and have you asked all the questions related to it so that you can actually perform a conversation in a way that's intelligent and has a purpose? You also need to know when it needs to be done by, and is there something else that needs to be involved? I mean, are there different subcontractors? Are there vendors? And are there any special things, and I love this part, that the guy, when he asks you the question, he's not going to tell you all the bad parts about it. It's up to you to figure it out. So if you can wrestle out of him any of those special things, those gotchas, before you get into it, it's going to make your life a little bit easier. So we've gone through step 1, ask the question. Make sure you understand what it is you're supposed to be communicating about. Step 2 is do the research and understand your duty. And we've seen the time when somebody walks in a meeting and starts talking, and once the room heats up, he's lost, because he didn't think it through. And, when you got different subcontractors sitting around the room, it's easy to get lost because they're throwing in anything and everything. And they may know more about the problem than you did because you didn't ask all the questions. So that's a very important thing to really think about is make sure that you've done the research and you know the problem well enough to be able to communicate at everybody's level in the room that you're going to be talking to, or to the audience. It may be a single person or it may be a group of people. And do yourself a big favor. Always, always, always do your homework. So if a guy asks you, he says, yeah, I need this, I got a problem with RFI number 85, and I just don't know what in the heck to do about it. Go ahead and clarify it. What is the problem? Is there something missing on the job site? Or is this causing, or have we installed something improperly because of that RFI? Or what is it, right? Then go in and make sure you've collected all the documents related to that task that you've been asked to do. So you're going to have to go pull up everything related to RFI 85, when it started, why it started, what the answer was, what you guys did in return, and then what is the issue today, and what was the critical thinking of why this was at one point and became a problem at another point. And then depending on the type of problem or request given to you, make a copy of all the POs, materials, everything, because Then when you're sitting in that room and a guy says, "Nah, that's not what that PO said," you can just flip it out and say, "Here you go. Look, here's what it says." And that's why I'm trying to tell you that this is the only answer that we have available to us. So by providing that accurate information in real time as part of your conversation will greatly enhance your level of integrity. First of all, people are going to quit asking you stupid questions if you always have an answer to it. But if you don't have an answer to a stupid question, they'll keep coming at you with more and more of them. So you can really decide which way of the street you want to walk on. I prefer to always have the data, even if I never have to pull it out, versus being on the other side trying to bluff my way through it if they ask me something I'm not able to substantiate. So step 3 is what we were just talking about before: critical thinking, formulation of your solution. And this is really the last step in the process of communicating your communication cycle. And just as we discussed, this may happen. You may be able to get to a critical solution, through your thinking, that it doesn't take more than a minute or two. You may be so familiar with the issue that you know where all the documents are. You've read the documents, and you're fairly fresh on the matter. So off you go, and in a minute or two, you've solved the problem, you've pulled it together, and you go on and do what you got to do. However, it's still a step that you need to do is, have you asked yourself all those questions? Have you critically thought the thing through to come up with a logical and concise solution? And what is the solution or response to the question or task given to you? If it is a problem, then you should have a solution as well. Don't just say, "Yeah, here's the problem, and I've defined it as this," because that's not going to do much good for anyone. What you want to do is, through your critical thinking, understand the problem and then always offer a solution that hopefully is in the best interest of your company and your position on the job site. And therefore, you're being proactive. And we talked about active and passive voice. You take the active voice at that point. So you're now controlling the destiny of your solution versus being on the receiving side. Because I guarantee you, if you're on the receiving side, it's not going to be as favorable to you as you would want or could have wished for. So by you establishing the forward position in an active voice based on your critical thinking, you're able to support it. You've got your homework done. You know what the problem was before you got into it, and you're ready to resolve that issue. But if you skip any one of those steps, you're going to find yourself degraded in your ability to carry out and solicit and get approval for your solution that serves you the best. So once again, we're really saying it's a step 1, 2, 3. Step 1 is understand the purpose of the verbal discussion. Plain and simple. Step 2, do the research and understand your duty. Not a hard thing to do. Step 3 is critical thinking. Formulate a solution. And now you're ready to go. And and we'll get into this a little bit further as on critical thinking again, because critical thinking is, of course, the most important aspect of why these things work or they don't work. If your critical thinking is off, or you're not doing critical thinking, the guy's going to be able to shoot you down fairly quick saying, "Well, you didn't really think that thing through, and if we do this, it's going to cause this delay over here, and it's going to create another issue over there, and that's not favorable for your company or yourself for that matter." So we'll go back to the step 1, 2, and 3 every time. Before you open mouth, ask 3 questions. Have you done step 1, 2, and 3? And if you do that continually for every conversation you go through for the next couple of months, I think you'll see quite a difference in it. And with that said, we'll just go ahead and move into critical thinking at this point.